underestimate the power of PlayStation.
Beyond.
What's up, everybody? Yes, we are here with the one and only Chris Zimmerman. There's only two
guys.
of us, though. There's the third clap. There's the third.
I appreciate it.
You're here to talk about Infamous Second Son.
That's right.
I don't know if you know this. Colin and I are a bit of Infamous fans.
I've heard.
Okay,
heard
good.
Rumors.
I don't know
I've
if you're
heard rumors that you guys are Infamous fans.
But what I want to do is start with who are you and what do you do at Sucker Punch?
Well, I'm Chris Zimmerman. I'm one of the co-founders of Sucker Punch.
That's a big deal.
Well,
you're royalty.
Yeah. It just means I'm old, is really what it means. So we started Sucker Punch in 1997, so I've been doing this now for coming up on 17 years.
What brings you back?
Putting smiles on people's faces.
Yeah, and all that sweet
absolutely.
Sly Cooper money, I bet.
Yeah, right.
Colin.
Yes.
You set all this up.
I did.
I'm very happy you did.
Are you?
I'm very happy about
Good,
Second
good.
Son.
Oh, me too. I'm so excited about it.
What questions do you have for Chris?
I have a lot. Well, so here's the thing. We'll lift the veil, the curtain, as it were. I was just at Sucker Punch. I just saw Chris a few days ago for the history of Sucker Punch.
You're blowing all my material. So.
Which I'm going to be writing soon.
Yeah.
Soon, like in the next month or two.
Will it start in 1997?
It will start in 1997. It'll start even before
I was gonna say,
1997
right?
because, of course, Chris and his friends all worked at Microsoft. And so we're gonna start from there and work our way forward. But I guess I'm telling you this because a lot of the questions, I feel bad because a lot of the questions I had already asked. I talked to Chris this morning. I'm like, you're gonna have to answer the same questions on Beyond and then on the live stream
and then on Up at Noon.
And the questions I asked last week.
Don't worry, I'll curse a lot and kick my feet around.
Excellent.
Great.
But one of the things that I saw that the readers were tweeting us today because we tweeted out saying that Mr. Zimmerman's gonna be here and do you have any questions for him? One of the questions I thought was interesting that we were getting a lot is pertaining to Vita. Not a Vita Infamous game, but how, remote play works for Infamous. Mm-hmm. And so can you talk a little bit about did you guys, Sure. Is that something that's even in the pipeline when you're making the game, or is this something you kind of worry about later?
I kind of worried about it later. You have to think about it a little bit, obviously, because the controls are slightly different. They've done some clever things in the way they made remote play work so that it's not so hard from the standpoint of a game developer like us. In fact, it was kind of magical. We had the game running, and then finally remote play worked well enough for us to give it a try, and it basically worked out of the box. We could just plug it in and play remote. It's really cool, actually. If you've got a Vita, it's super cool to be able to. I mean, it works. I mean, just you're like, well, is it going to be laggy? Is it going to be the same experience? And it is. It's phenomenal, actually, how close it is to just sitting in front of the TV and playing on the PS4.
Did you guys create a special interface for Vita or whatever? I know that Assassin's Creed 4 did that, and a lot of people really enjoyed that, but some games just parlay over to Vita without any upgrades. So is there like a special button map or something like that?
Yeah, they're just button maps, figuring out how, what does it mean, because the buttons are a little bit different on the Vita, so you just have to figure out what goes where. So.
Okay. Gregory?
Yeah.
What do you have to ask?
Oh my gosh! So, at what point are you going to drop the act and just say that Cole's back in this game? He's got to be. There was a lightning, but you said the good annon's the canon ending. There's a lightning bolt, looks like a 3. I already know. You can just tell me that at the end of the game, Delson's going to come around a corner and Cole.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
But what about Zeke?
Greg,
where's
you
Zeke?
Want Cole back?
I want a cameo. I don't want to fight him. I hope the overall enemy isn't Kessler. But then I'm not even against that so much because I'm sure it'd be cool. Like, I'm just excited to play it. Here's the thing about it is you guys have done a good job this time around with not showing me jack shit. I don't know what's happening in this game.
I
know 2 powers.
Strategy. It was called the Greg Miller strategy.
If you show Greg Miller,
Greg.
you show Greg very little, he can't bitch about it and make you change it.
No, actually, we kind of felt like. On Infamous 2, we told people too much. We were so excited about all the stuff we managed to get in the game.
Yeah.
We wanted to tell everybody about it. And by the time the game came out, there weren't any secrets. You played through the game and it was like, well, yeah, this is great, but I've seen it before. This is really fun, but I kind of expected it to be fun. And we really wanted you and Colin and everybody to have this experience of experiencing something for the first time, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I remember playing Uncharted 2, right? And there's this point where suddenly you get to play as Boy Drake, and that was super. I had no idea that was coming. And so when it fades up and there's this boy there, I'm like, oh wait, oh no way, I gotta be Boy Drake. This is super cool. And it was cool because it was a surprise. I mean, it was cool on its own, but it was cool because it was a surprise. And we wanted to make sure that people had that, with Second Son, that there was stuff that they had no idea was coming. So.
I like that.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like compared to Infamous 2, you're exactly right in the sense that we've seen so little. Like that makes me more excited to play it. When I was at Sucker Punch and I played the portion we'll show in the live stream today, I almost wanted to not play. I was like, I played it for like 10 minutes. I don't really want to. Like we're so close now. Like why ruin it now?
Yeah.
But. The truth be told, it's out of context. You have no idea what's going on in the story. It's just fun to like play, and what I really like about it, and I think it was intentional for you guys, is it feels like Infamous. Like it just all came back to me. Like it just the way it feels,
the sense of fluidity and flow. That which is what we really try to do, right? We want to make it feel like you're just flowing through the city, right? That you think it and then you go do it.
We say that, but I mean, how easy is that to pull off?
It's a pain, man. It's super hard.
Because that's the one thing everybody I talk to about the original Infamous games, right? They're like, well, I didn't like True Shore, I didn't like the story, but like the game was fun to play, right?
Yeah. And you kind of see that when it's kind of the core of our message. You see the gameplay spot that we have out on the internets now. And the tagline's "Enjoy Your Power," because it's really kind of where we started on Second Son. We really wanted to make it about the joy of having superpowers, right? You really wanted to feel like Delson was just having a great time, and that vicariously through him you had a great time.
Right.
So everything really kind of revolves around that sort of idea of being a superhero is awesome.
So I've talked to you guys obviously a lot about this game and other games in general, and you talk about the fact that like at E3 when Billy shows me the demo and I'm geeking out to him about how great it looks. I talked about how that great moment in that E3 reveal where Delson pops up in the air, right, smiles at the camera and then comes and smashes. And he says, that was the big problem with Cole, right? That Cole wasn't happy to be a superpowered being, right? He didn't know what he was doing.
He was super grumpy.
But was that one of those things that's like hindsight's 2020 when you were making
absolutely.
the game? Okay.
Yeah, we you don't know, right, when you start making the game, right? You don't know how it's going to turn out. So you have an idea of who the characters are and why they are the way they are, right? So with Cole in the first game, we really did start with the idea that Cole woke up, or you woke up in the morning and you had superpowers, and how would you react to it, right?
Yeah.
And Cole definitely feels the burden of this, right? That he didn't ask for this, and that if you remember the beginning of Infamous, there's this huge disaster that happens because of him. So from the very beginning, from the time you press start, you've destroyed half a city, and that burden weighs on him. And it kind of becomes discordant with what you want as a player. You really want to be a superhero, and you want it to be fun, right? You don't really want to have somebody complaining about what a burden it is to have all this awesome power, right?
Yeah.
And so we were able to tweak that a little bit with Infamous 2, where he's a little bit less grumpy, a little bit more enjoying things.
He had a short sleeve shirt. That was the real problem. Is he was really hot jumping around in that jacket. You had him in a leather coat.
Right.
What were you thinking?
Showing off his tattoos. So, that, by the way, is one of the things that's where you don't really realize the awesome power you have until you see someone with a selfie of their Cole McGrath tattoo, where they just copied your tattoo from the game. You're like, wow, I didn't realize what awesome power I had here at my fingertips. So,
I mean, does that? I have to imagine making a game's got to be a weird experience, right? Colin and I talk about this all the time. Like, we put out so much video content. Granted, there's nothing to it. We're just talking, right? And people are like, oh, it's great, or that sucks, and whatever. And we get used to it, right? But then you guys put it out, and whether the reaction is, dear Sucker Punch, I hate you so much, or if it's like they get a tattoo, like when you're making a game, is it easy to understand the impacts you're going to have, or that you could
No, it's hard because you kind of go dark for a long time, right? We really haven't talked to the public about things since Festival of Blood came out, and so now it's been 2.5 years almost, and we've been working that whole time on something without really being entirely sure how people are going to react to it.
Yeah.
So it's super gratifying to put out what you've been working on so hard and see people have a positive reaction to it. But at the same time, we really do care about our fans. That's who we make the games for. And it's important to us that the people that are invested, like you guys are, in Infamous, the idea of Infamous, that we meet people's expectations. And so there's a lot of pressure. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to meet those expectations, to make sure that the people that have enjoyed Infamous games in the past really enjoy Second Son. So, we're biting our fingernails a little bit right now. We've seen people play it, right? We've done focus tests. We've had people get their hands on it at various press events. So we know people are liking it. But until it's actually out there and we really let people see the whole thing and let them react to the whole experience, you just never know how it's going to actually work out. So,
you talk about expectations. Is it different right now launching Second Son? Because I mean, you are in a
It is.
completely different place.
Yeah.
I you know that I ask long-winded questions, but the story I always had is that when I first really got to hang out with Nate at one of the pre-release parties, and I was talking to him, I was like, Infamous was about to come out, the original, and I was like, in an interview we were talking, and he said something about being basically like, we're kind of like Naughty Dog's little brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact that like Uncharted multiplayer beta for the first time was included with Infamous 1, right?
Yeah.
And so that said, that's always seemed like they were the pace car. Naughty Dog was out front, right? Now on the PS4, it's you, right? And like this is the game that people are buying PlayStations for and like waiting for.
Yeah, it's weird, actually, right? Because we kind of snuck up on people with Infamous 1. People thought of us as a company that did the Sly Cooper games.
Yeah.
And they didn't expect anything like Infamous from us. And so people were surprised by it. And this time we're not sneaking up on anybody, right? We've been out front and center with the whole PS4 launch stuff as one of the titles that really was built from the start for the PlayStation 4 and really tries to leverage it as much as possible. So yeah, it adds an extra level of kind of pressure to the whole thing that people's expectations are really pretty high. I mean, it's been fun. A lot of it's been fun, right? Where we'll do some captures, and there'll be NeoGAF threads about the captures, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is clearly fake. This isn't real. This is all simulated gameplay, right?"
Yeah.
And so we're just cackling back at Sucker Punch, saying, "No, actually, that's all real. That's 30 frames a second, baby." So that's been fun. That's been fun. And the truth is that the game is spectacular. So when it's out, I'm super confident that people are going to look at it. Because I do, right? I wander around the studio, and I'm the development director. I'm actually kind of supposed to know how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And I look around and I see something in the game, and I'm like, wait a second. How are we doing that?
Right.
I'll be like running down the street, and I'll see like reflections in the puddles of stuff, and I'll be like, wait a second, that's not even on the screen. Where's that coming from? How is that happening?
When I got that tour at PAX and we got to walk around and we got like a step-by-step, station-by-station tour, and we got to the one where, they were showing how like that, I don't even know what they call it, but that silver ball and how it creates reflections in the world. I took that screenshot and Instagrammed it, and with my iPhone I took a picture of a TV screen and then put a filter on it, and people were flipping out that was real. And like to have that on your 16-inch TV screen is going to be crazy, to see what that looks like.
It's super cool. I mean, you sometimes you just have to stop and look, and because when you're playing the game, you're focusing on the game, right? You're in the moment.
Yeah.
You're doing all this cool, superpower stuff. You're seeing all this stuff happen, and it's only when you kind of stop and just look, and you're like, wow, this is a video game, right?
Yeah.
It can look like this. It can sound like this. It can play like this. It's cool. You lose track of that while you're playing the game. You're just focusing on having fun. It's only when you stop and look at it, or when you wander past someone's desk, for me, that you're just kind of like bowled over that not only that it's possible, but for me, as one of the guys who worked on it, that we did it.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
It's funny because when I played last week, I hadn't played it since E3. When we saw it at Santa Monica, I let Vince play so he can get his hands on. We can get a different opinion.
You gave him a breadcrumb.
Yeah, I gave him a breadcrumb. Here you go,
from the King's
buddy.
plate.
Yeah, just wiped it on the floor and he eagerly went and picked it up. And what I was playing and what I was so blown away about, what came to my mind was that it's the same feeling I felt with Infamous, and especially Infamous 2, which is that I don't even really want to play the story right this minute. I don't want to the marker's there on the HUD. I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm just walking around and looking and panning the camera and did the same kind of stuff. But the wonder that I was filled with, even though Ken's standing there, I know he's going to kill me if I don't start playing the game soon. So I'm just like, I'm running,
His
towards
papers rolled up. He's his hand. Call man. Come on.
But and I remember remarking to him at one point, I don't even know where we are in the game. Our readers will see it during the live stream. I was on top of a building and there's just this cityscape in the far, and in the background, like way far away. And I'm like, can I go there? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, Jesus Christ, how big is this place?
Yeah, the world.
So how big is Seattle compared to Empire City or New Marais?
It's a little bit bigger. That wasn't our, the thing about the game design and the environment design is you want to make sure that for the Infamous games, it's about action, right? It's not about long journeys. You're not going to have to drive through the desert to get to our version of Las Vegas. You're just there. And so the size of our city gets determined really by how long we want it to take to get from one end to the other. And so that's, maybe 50% bigger in this game. So it's bigger, but it's not radically bigger. That wasn't our focus. It ends up, you kind of want to know the place, right? And you want to be able to move around it. You want to be able to get from one side to the other. We want you to focus on the action, not on navigation, or not on long distance navigation.
For me, like, when we were doing the demo and getting, I'm not even playing it, but just seeing it, like, you guys pulled the map out, and you're like, oh yeah, you can go to that island eventually, but this is, Seattle, this is where it's happening. What I want to do is go do all the different parts. You guys, from what I understand, did a lot to make sure every district of the city feels different. I want to go to the woods and see what that's like, but then I want to run and obviously climb the Space Needle.
Yeah, it's, we did, and I think you're going to enjoy it. The different parts of Seattle have, well, and for us it's fun, right, because it's Seattle, so it's where we are, right, we live there, and so we kind of do know what the spirit of each kind of part of Seattle is, and we can take the parts that we think are interesting and kind of toss them together into our kind of mashup of Seattle.
Speaking of Seattle, Jacob tweets at Game Over Greggy and says, why use a real-world city like Seattle? What kind of different challenges did this make for you and your team?
Well, it's our hometown, right? So that was fun for us.
So you're lazy. You just want to, I need reference photos.
Exactly.
Go out to get drinks. I don't know.
It's true, actually. We can just walk outside the office and take pictures of buildings and have some good reference for it. So it actually is convenient. We thought that the hardware had gotten to the point where we could say we were doing a real city and actually pull it off.
Yeah.
Is the truth. When we were doing our version of New York for Infamous 1, if we'd called it New York, people's expectations are different, than if we call it Empire City. And we were closer with Infamous 2. It's a little bit more New Orleans-y than Empire City is New York-y. But we felt like with Second Son, we actually could pull it off. We could actually make the Space Needle and actually have you believe it was the Space Needle.
Yeah.
And, for Seattle in particular, in the past, we just haven't had enough horsepower to build the technology to do rain and clouds and overcast and reflections and all the other things that you really have to have if you're going to say the game's in Seattle.
Now, did you know from the beginning when you guys picked Seattle that you wanted to go and get local businesses in the game? Because I think this is the coolest thing.
We did, yeah. We walked around. Actually, the first one we got, believe it or not, was the Space Needle.
Really?
Yeah, because somebody owns it, right?
Yeah.
So
Colin, I think?
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
So we appreciate it. We got Space Needle first because we were like, we can't really call it the Space Needle, or we can't call it Seattle unless it has the Space Needle. It's one of the few things that people can reliably say goes along with Seattle. And we don't want to have like the Galaxy Tower or whatever.
Sure.
So that was first, and they were surprisingly amenable.
Really?
The people that run the Space Needle were like, yeah, sure. There are a couple things you're not allowed to do, but
you can't knock it down. I'm sure.
Actually, that's actually not it.
Really?
We could actually have knocked it down. We actually asked about that.
Okay, so then my next guess would be like nobody can die from it or something. You can't toss anybody out of it.
We can't let you jump off the top.
Gotcha.
And then the next thing actually was the monorail. Seattle has monorail, and the ferries are actually run by the same people. So we got that next, and then we started diving into the local businesses, especially the ones that that are part of our picture of Seattle. Pink Elephant Car Wash is the cool one.
Who's planning to sell the game? I heard.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, we're gonna be able to buy the game with Pink Elephant Car Wash.
Get your car washed and get a game.
Exactly,
Awesome.
That's so cool. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's on Denny Stewart, one of the city streets in downtown Seattle. So
was this a really expensive undertaking? I'm not looking for a figure here. Okay, good.
No, it was just it wasn't about money really. It was about finding people that kind of got it. And not everybody did, right? There are some businesses that we would have loved to have in the game, so I'm not allowed to name names, where it just didn't work out. People didn't quite get why it was going to be fun to have their game or have their business in the game.
Kyle tweets at Game Over Greggy and at IGN and says, Chris, is this the open world game that finally tells a powerful narrative? So he's giving you the benefit of the doubt, but then kind of insulting your former games too.
Narrative's hard for us to predict, right? You have to let people play and see, right? And so we do test it, right? We have focus tests. We have people sit down and play, and people have really enjoyed the story. They think it's great. They really love Delson and Reggie and the relationship between them. So there's a lot that people really react strongly to. But until it's actually out there and millions of people play it in the wild, we don't know for sure. So I certainly hope so. That's been our goal, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you went really far this time with it's the cutscenes, right? And even just the gameplay of watching face, like I'm talking about with Delson about to hit down. You bring in Troy and you bring in William and you put all these balls on their face and you capture it so that when they smile, you have everything.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's super cool. We didn't know how it was going to work out. We in Infamous 2, we did motion capture all the cutscenes, but all the facial stuff was animated by hand. So we had a bunch of people that were actually animating every eyebrow raise and every mouth shape. That was all done by hand. This time around, we took a more of a big tech Hollywood approach to it, and we did full performance capture. So we actually had vacuum formed plastic masks made for each of our main actors.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, and they drilled holes in known spots on them, and so every time we went into a shoot, Troy Baker had to sit still while they held a plastic mask over his face and put little dots all over his face. So, Troy, I'm sure that was
Sitting
a
still
highlight
for
of his
him,
day.
yeah. And I'm sure
Exactly.
Travis didn't let him off the
Yeah, he
hook,
had
probably
to stop
poking him in the ribs.
talking too for a while. That was probably the hard part.
That's probably really nice for you, though.
So, and then we could use that. Then there were little cameras attached to their face, and we could actually take pictures of all those little dots. And through a whole bunch of technology that I won't go through, you end up being able to play that back in game. So when you're watching the cutscenes in the game, we're actually animating every single vertex, every single point on Troy's face,
Wow.
30 times a second. So, and there are 20-something thousand points on his face. So. It's crazy how much data gets slammed through. It's like you. I mean, it's technology, right? So it's like you're at PlayStation 4. It's awesome, it's whatever, and we say words, and you're like, well, how's that actually going to change my experience as a player, right? Well, this is an example. We couldn't do this before. We just couldn't get that much data through the system on the PlayStation 3, so we couldn't actually run it that way. And as a result, the performances are. There's a distance between you as a player and the actors. Even for the really great games, we've all played, really great PlayStation 3 games and really gotten into the story. But there's a layer of technology that was clouding things. It was like a little Vaseline, over the lens.
Yeah.
A little soft focus. And this time around, this performance capture approach, we can get rid of that. It's just more clear. You can actually see the actors act now. You look at them and you can see the emotions on their faces while you're playing the game. And since you can be a little bit more subtle. If you're like old school, go back to PlayStation 2 and you're doing a cutscene, you kind of have to have the players say what they're thinking, right? You have to say, "Now I'm mad." And you don't have to anymore. You can do it like you were writing for TV or for film. You have them say what they're thinking, and you can read their emotions on their faces. So it really helps. When you're playing the game, you just feel like you know who these characters are. Instantly by the way their faces look and move, and you can tell what they're thinking, and it's just great. It lets us tell, I think, a more nuanced story. We can have more emotional content in the narrative because you can read it. So it's great. I mean, it helps us really get into Delson's character and into his relationship with Reggie. You can really feel that brothers relationship where they're super fond of each other. They're also frustrated with each other, and you can really get that across. And it would have been hard for us to do that before.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the thing that I took away most. I think I actually turned to Ken when I was playing. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like on that big screen you guys have in your demo room or whatever, I didn't quite appreciate. It's obviously a beautiful game when you see it at E3 on the smaller TVs like this one here, but what was on that big screen and Reggie's talking to Delson and just the skin textures. Like I was actually what I was actually blown away most about is that they have like little birthmarks and imperfections.
Yeah.
And like I was like, my God, like that's and what I was so blown away about when I was thinking about it on the plane later when I was coming back from Seattle was this is a game that's coming to PlayStation 4 4 months after PlayStation 4 launched. We think about Drake's Fortune or whatever on PS3, which was over a year after PS3 launched, and how beautiful we thought that game was. And then you look at Uncharted 3, and Uncharted 3 makes Drake's Fortune look not good anymore, Right. And like it seems like you guys are so far ahead of the curve now. Like it makes me even more excited to see. Once we play Second Son, we really jump into it.
Once
and then
we get through this garbage to see what really the system
can you imagine what Sucker Punch's next game is going to look like? Or like what Naughty Dog's next game or Santa Monica's next game is going to look like because they're all learning from each other and iterating and stuff. It's like I was like blown away by that.
It's exciting. It's for people that are buying the PlayStation 4 now. I hope that Second Son gets them excited, like Colin is, about where things are going.
Right.
This is why you buy a new console, to get excited about what's going to, not just what's here now, but where it's going to be in a couple years. We certainly have a lot of ideas. So we're taking things. We're nowhere near the point where we feel like we've done everything we can do on this hardware. And getting other studios who are also making that level of effort. The Naughty Dog guys, Santa Monica, Guerrilla, the other Sony studios. We all push each other. We all look at what each other have done and said, okay, well, that's the new bar. What are we going to do to top that? It's a friendly competition, I think, between all video game developers to move the industry forward.
Speaking of new ideas, Brian Bell tweets at GameOverReggie, #Beyond.
Beyond.
Thank you. Chris, was there ever a thought going into development for PlayStation 4 that you'd pursue a new IP? Did you always know you wanted to stay in the Infamous universe?
We did. We wanted to stay and do another Infamous story. We didn't feel like we'd told all the Infamous stories we wanted to tell. We always talk about what we're going to do next. It's always open. It's one of the great things about being part of Sony. Sony has such a long-standing commitment to really unlocking the creativity of all their internal studios. So we're never instructed, oh yeah, you need to do another thing in this series because that's what we need from a business standpoint. It's really more of from a creative standpoint. What story do you guys want to tell next? Where do you guys want to go? And we were excited about doing another Infamous game. We thought that, starting again with a new character on the new platform, we were going to be able to do something special. We were super excited about it. And it's worked out, right? I mean, I think that when we were starting working on Second Son, we were thinking about it not in terms of being a game for the people that have played Infamous 1 and Infamous 2. I mean, clearly it's for them as well, but for everybody who was buying the new platform, everybody that had a new PS4 and was looking for something exciting to do with it. We kind of had both audiences in mind from the start. And so kind of rebooting the franchise a little bit, going to a new character, new idea of what the game is, really opened some opportunities for us where we could rethink, say, the control scheme, which is actually pretty different in the new game, so that it was simpler, so that it was more approachable to people that hadn't played the previous games in the series.
So, like, when you're talking about, rebooting in a way, was this something you came to on your own accord, or was there, like, because I find it fascinating that, right, Killzone comes out and it's not Killzone 4, you know what I mean? And you guys come out and you're not Infamous 3, and then Uncharted, whatever the hell the final name will be, but it's just Uncharted, right? Like, it seems like with the new console, there's this movement of, like, let's give people a starting off point, but I didn't know if, like, Shuhei knocked on your door one day and was like, hey, by the way, drop the numbers.
No, not so much. I think that it's more, parallel evolution, right? Mm-hmm. We're all facing the same state of the world, right? We all have the same goals in mind. And so I think a lot of people came to the same conclusion about where they wanted to go. You wanted to rethink things a little bit to make it fresh. Because you don't want someone who bought the PlayStation 4 to say, well, I didn't play Infamous 1. I have no idea why. Everyone should, right? So, but apparently there are people who haven't. And so I don't want to play Second Son. And we didn't want anybody to think that. We wanted to build a game for that person that was coming to the Infamous franchise fresh, that had never played one of the games before. The other studios are, a lot of them came to the same conclusion.
One of the things I'm most curious about, because we talk about this kind of autonomy with all of the first parties. I hear this from everyone I talk to. Yeah. With the DualShock 4 specifically, you guys actually use the touchpad in the middle, and I think you use it somewhat cleverly, to absorb powers, neon or smoke, for instance. Was there any pressure from Sony to utilize that, or is that something that just kind of seemed obvious to you in a sort of iteration from DualShock 3?
It was exciting for us. We didn't get pressure to use the pad. We were super excited about the new controller. We talked about how excited we were, how awesome it is, and that was the part of it that we got most excited about, was the touchpad and what could we do with it. How could we make the game better? How could we make the player's experience better using the touchpad? We focused on the times when we kind of wanted to take you out of the flow of action. Usually when you're playing the game, we want you to forget about the controller, right? We want it to just be like it doesn't exist, that you just think about doing something and then Delson does it. The touchpad's a little bit different for us. We wanted you to actually think about using the touchpad. So we use it in Second Son in the times where you're not really using it during combat. You're not using it when you're under a lot of pressure. You're using it when we want you to draw your attention to Delson doing something out of the ordinary. Like drawing power is pretty, banal, but that's actually kind of how we thought about it. There's some other stuff in the game we just haven't shown yet that's a little bit more creative. I think we showed the finger scanner.
Yeah, you've done finger scanner, drawing the smoke out, and
I'm
then
so glad you're here to tell me
opening
what
doors.
we've told,
Don't worry,
told people.
I'm Junior Sucker Punch PR. I know exactly what boundaries you can talk about. But no, I remember when I saw it and I came back, and the finger scanner is the one I bitched about on camera. But the tearing, swiping out to tear open doors. At first, I was like, "That's so dumb, Yeti," and then I was like, "But maybe it's just years and years of tapping X, and that's not much better. I hate tapping X, but I just don't think about it anymore."
You do get into this sort of trap as a game developer, and we clearly have been in this of using the triangle button as the everything else button, right? It's a kitchen sink. You go somewhere and, hey, triangle shows up. I must be able to do something interesting
Right.
here.
Interact. Okay, cool.
So with the touchpad, the thing that we were able to do is we were able to underline physical correspondence between your gesture and the thing you were doing in the game. So if you're opening a door with the touchpad, you're kind of opening the door with the touchpad, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, well, I'm grabbing it and I'm sliding it open. Or, the thing we've shown where you kind of lift up the core on the big RV-looking thing and blast it away.
Right.
You lift it and hold it, just like Delson is. That physical correspondence really worked for us in the game. So we looked for opportunities to do that. And if there wasn't an opportunity to do that, then we just put it on a button instead.
While we're talking about something like this, Brody Williams tweets and he says, "What's the best, most unspoken / overlooked aspect of Infamous Second Son? A power? Design feature?"
That's an excellent question.
There you go, Brody.
Let's see. I think that people haven't quite gotten, and they probably won't get until they play the game, how many different ways there are to play the game.
Yeah.
Because you look at it, and especially if you're coming from an Infamous background, you kind of think of it in a way that you played Infamous. But there really are multiple ways to approach things. And if you watch people even at Sucker Punch, you'll have people who use the powers that are there in different ways. You'll have people that are very much into melee system, just running up and getting close, dashing away. You'll have people that really play the karma system hard. That's what they focus on. You'll have people that are sniping, playing from a distance. There are lots of different ways to play. And so that's, I think, the thing that people haven't picked up on yet. And also, we haven't done a great job really talking through karma and how being a good player versus being an evil player and how that changes your play style. It's one of our big focuses this time. I think we'll do it on the live stream. We'll be able to play it both ways and talk about that. But that was our big focus with karma this time was, having it change your experience as a player, having it not just be a narrative device, but actually change your play style. That if you played as good, you're actually going to play the game differently than if you played it evil. That your motivations and the mechanical things you were going to do, how you thought about a combat situation, were going to be different.
So it's more different than just either shocking someone back to life or sucking them to death.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that was fun, right?
No, that was great.
But it wasn't enough for us, and so that's one of the things we worked hardest on this game was saying, okay, how are we going to change things? How are we going to make it so that on your second playthrough, you actually have a different experience? And we do all the things you would normally expect of, your choices have a narrative impact, you get different missions to play, you get different powers to use as you have in past Infamous games. But we wanted that core combat loop, hey, there are 4 bad guys over there, what am I going to do? We wanted your approach to that to actually change, and we haven't done a great job of that on previous Infamous games. This time I think we nailed it. I think we did a great job on it.
I really enjoyed, like you said, the melee stylings, especially. Like the evolution of melee in Infamous was just extraordinary from the first game where it really was pretty bad. And then the second one with Amp was really, really good.
Yeah.
And this one I really liked how, like, depending on if I had Smoke or Neon equipped, the melee attacks are different. And like I really enjoyed that too. And I guess that brings me to one of the questions I'm most interested in is, how did you stumble upon, we had electricity in the first one, right? And then electricity, fire, and ice in the second one. And now we have smoke and neon. And these are awesome. Like, how do you how did you stumble upon these unusual powers?
It's super interesting. I'll give you the whole story. So, unlike apparently everything else where I've only given you a partial story. So
I'm not going to half-ass it this time, guys. I'll tell you the real thing.
So this is going to sound sort of goofy, but we started off. We knew we wanted new powers in this game. We didn't want to center around electricity this time, and so we thought of it as modern elements. It's pretty obvious that you could do fire, ice, air,
right.
water, whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that felt a little tired. So we wanted to make that modern, and so we thought about things that are around you wherever you go in the modern world, right? So we'd already done electricity, which is clearly an example of that. But we thought about steel, we thought about smoke, we thought about a lot of things that you see, and we tried them out. And what we ended up with in the game, we've shown smoke and neon at this point, were things that feel natural, feel like a natural part of the world. That's really kind of core to the Infamous idea, is that this is a real world, and it kind of works like the world you're used to. It's just that there are people with superpowers in it. Mm-hmm. And so having something like that really feels grounded in the real world really helps you kind of buy into that setting, I think. So the hard part, though, was after we said, hey, smoke, that'd be cool, everyone is like, that doesn't feel like you're going to kick ass, right? It's like when you're going to blow smoke rings at guys.
You're just going to choke people and just go in their mouth.
Whatever. This doesn't sound like it's going to be that much fun, or at least it doesn't sound like it's going to feel powerful.
You got to play the long game with smoke. They're going to get cancer in 40 to 50 years.
That's right. That's right. You're going to see expected lifespan numbers above their head going down slowly as smoke at them. All right, I've got another 2 weeks. This guy's going to be dead. So, yeah, and then you'll be able to spend green gems to speed up their demise. Right? So it took a lot of iterations on it, and so for something like smoke, it ends up not just being smoke. We call it smoke, but if you look at it, it's smoke, but then it's smoke plus fire plus ash is really what you end up seeing. And if it's just smoke, and we did some iterations that were just smoke, you're like, well, it's kind of wussy. It just doesn't feel like I'm going to knock somebody over with that. But then once we added in some fire to it, and so what you see is kind of a projectile that's fire, but the more long-lasting part of it is smoke, then it starts feeling a little bit more powerful and it makes more sense.
So there are other powers that we don't know about that people will just stumble upon in the game.
Yes.
Awesome. That's very exciting. Like we don't know, because that with Infamous 2, like you said, knowing so much, like we knew the fire and the ice and like the bad and the good and all these kinds of so it's cool that we're just going to stumble upon these modern elements, as you say. And
hopefully, and I actually, you've heard the philosophy, so you shouldn't be surprised when they pop up. You won't be like, oh, well, what, there's like spirit power? No, there's no spirit power in the game. It's going to be something where you're like, oh, yeah, that's all around me. I never thought of it as a superpower before, but they did something cool with it.
Trees. You're going to have tree power.
Trees?
Yeah. Tree.
Green,
no
green
leaf power.
Green.
Leaf power.
Yes,
leaf blower.
Like Woodman in Mega Man 2.
Yeah, okay, it's not going to be like Woodman. You mentioned it yourself. You're on a whole bunch of IGN properties today. The live stream, up at noon. Up at noon, of course, the most casual, top level. Let's talk about Infamous. Yeah. Then the live stream will be talking about the gameplay. Podcast Beyond is the most nerdy PlayStation thing.
Excellent.
So the question
I
is,
can do nerdy.
What are the trophies like in Infamous Second Son?
Oh man, we haven't talked about it at all.
I know you
haven't.
Disappoint
you.
I assume they're like Infamous 1 and 2.
Yeah, they're in the same. I mean, they're new, obviously.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, they're not the exact same.
They're not the exact same, but it's the same sort of thing. So, okay. I mean, it's enjoy your power, right? It's
Two great playthroughs.
It's about making sure that you're really exploring the nooks and crannies of the power sets that you get. You know, that we want to make sure that. We play the game all the time, right? And so we know all these cool little tricks you can do, little skate park style tricks you can do with the powers. Yeah. We want to make sure that players get that experience as well. And we use trophies as our way to do that, right? Mm-hmm. The trophies are kind of there to make sure that you do stunts, that you're doing tricky stuff, not just running around and shooting people. I mean, that's fun, but that's the game, right? You play that, you get that, everybody gets that. We use the trophies as our lever to get people to kind of experience the kind of less obvious cool stuff in the game.
Awesome. Can't wait to platinum it.
Nah, me neither.
Before Greg.
You won't beat it before me. Did you platinum 2 before me?
I think so, yeah.
No,
but I reviewed it, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I still don't think you did, though.
Well, we can find out. PSN profiles.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right. I'm good. We got a lot more to do today.
I know. I don't want to tire Chris out because Podcast Beyond listeners don't they don't know that there's just gonna be so much Infamous today in our lives.
Hopefully by the end when he's done with this now. Mm. Then he goes on, he does the live stream. Then he goes on and does Up at Noon. Then he goes to other outlets.
Right.
So I'm hoping by the end of Up at Noon we've totally wiped him out.
Right.
So he goes to other outlets. He's like, it's just
my passion for Infamous Second Son is bottomless.
Good answer.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Good luck with Infamous.
Thank you.
Comes out March
21st.
Worldwide, a Friday, right?
Yeah.
It's a Friday. I have no idea why it's a Friday.
It's a blockbuster. Everybody gets it for the weekend.
I think it's smart. Yeah. The kids will come home from school. The parents don't mind them spending all weekend with it. We don't have to worry about work.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
All right.
Well, I'll check with you on Monday the 22nd, 3rd, 4th. to see what you guys think.
All right, absolutely. Please do. And please come back whenever you'd like.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Beyond.
Beyond.
Users lose all sense of reality and enter another world. Remember, do not underestimate the power of PlayStation.